Like we did some trials this year back in Indiana with Richard Lloyd's group, where they were doing watermelons, and they usually fumigate before watermelons. And the one, I hope I tell this story the right way, but I think we split two fields, and the one side of the watermelons that did not get our product, it's not Dominate, it's Guardian out there. Dominate's a Valley label, right? We said, well, can we compare them? And they go, yeah, you can compare them, because the side that didn't have Guardian is now pumpkins. The Fusarium took the whole thing. So, you get those types of results, and those open people's eyes. And you wish that there were a ton of watermelon acres. They're just not those specialty crop type acres. But it's awesome when you can help a grower get through something like that, where, you get a small grower that's got couple of circles of watermelons and something goes bad. That's his whole year. Well, guys, welcome to the podcast. I'm here today with Mark Anderson and Barry Nelson, friends of ours from Valley Agronomics. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm Mark Anderson. I work out of Valley Agronomics in American Falls, Idaho. I'm a crop advisor with them. I work mainly with potatoes, sugar beets, corn, and grain crops.
My name is Barry Nelson. I also work at Valley Agronomics, been there about 11 years, but I've been doing this crop advisor thing for about 35 years. Yeah. So I've been in it a day or two, but work with the same crops. I mean, we don't have a whole slew of crops we can work with, so we have these, crops are important to us, so we do everything we can to help the farmer.
I've been waiting for you to add some strawberry acres. I really like working with strawberries.
I like raspberries.
Fortunately, we have to buy those in the store.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'll kind of kick it off. People ask me a lot about Dominate. At the time that Dominate was really our second big iteration on our products. Everything before that is what I would call a flagship product. Valley Bios being, the flagship of all flagships, right? That's what we started out with. Just a general great probiotic. The way that Valley Dominate ended up coming to life is, I remember we were sitting in our old office over on May Street here in Idaho Falls, and it was a junk pile, but we're sitting around there going, how do we innovate from here? Valley Bios is off to a really good start, but is there something else? Are there other markets or other applications that we could look at? And kind of my marketing brain goes, well, what do growers spend money on? And one of the biggest things that came up is wow, that's a really big bill that they're putting towards fumigation every year. And that's a big chunk of money. You wonder if there's alternatives to that. Because if you think about soil fumigation, it's been a practice for 25, 30 years, you think? Mm-hmm. And all signs point to when that started out, it was really, really effective, right? Guys were talking about 100 sack pops in putting metam sodium down or something like that, and just really trying to sterilize the soil. And you do that the way that we take like a heavy dose Cipro or something like that, but you take that hard of an antibiotic in your system, and it's going to be rough for a few days or months or weeks at least. Yeah, you better eat some yogurt afterwards. Yeah. That is seriously the analogy that we started thinking about, is like, if you're going on high dose antibiotics, the first thing that one of your doctors is going to say is, you better follow that up with a good probiotic. And you think about the reasons why, right? You come in, you kill as much as you can of the microbiome that's in the soil. And then there's all these resources, and you hope that the first guys back in are good guys, because if it's a bad guy, there's nothing to hold. You killed all the checks and balances in that soil too. Mm-hmm. So this idea of, what if we took a high dose, well-known, broad spectrum, biodiverse product and put it into the soil in enough gallons or enough material that that maybe we can replace those natural checks and balances, get them back going, and get that soil moving again, because a dead soil is just dirt, right? And the difference between dirt and soil is organic matter and life. So That was really the genesis of Dominate. And I remember coming out and talking to some of you guys, and you're like, man, you're up in the night. Another one of Farm Grade's harebrained ideas, maybe, right?
Here we go.
Barry, we always joke that you've been one of our all-time highest salesmen of our products, and you weren't the first one, though. You weren't the first guy to the table. Talk to us a little bit about your evolution on
well, like
coming
you say,
to.
You came around.
Yeah.
And you were talking like, we think this would be a good replacement for fumigation, and I remember thinking, I don't want to be the first guy to go out with this. I really did. I could see how the farmer could be skeptical.
Yeah.
Because I was in that same boat.
Mm-hmm.
So I set it out for a couple of years and just let people work with it. Some other salesmen in the company. And when we got together for our meetings, I heard some guys that I really respect in our company that was having really good luck with it.
Mm-hmm.
So then that's what got me to the point where, okay, I'm gonna try it. And then when I did, we had some pretty outstanding results.
Yeah. And maybe it's a good point for us to kind of talk about Dominate as a product and a protocol, right? Because it was both. We wanted to have a powerful blend of good bacteria and fungi that was maybe a little bit different than what we were getting with BIOS, a little bit more biodiverse, a couple of other super bugs that we put in there. But also, fumigation usually happens in the fall. They're going in from grain into potatoes. They use fumigation in strawberries and other crops that we're into. So it's not just a potato thing, but that's what we have in our backyard, and that's what we know. A typical application of Dominate, you would start out with 12 to 15 gallons in the fall, and we're just trying to broadcast that over as much soil. And even better if a guy's going to spend a little bit of money on some fumigation, come with, maybe 8 gallons behind fumigation. Give that fumigation some time to get out of the soil,
Certainly,
10 days or something like that, right? But then we come back and re-inoculate behind it, right? I want to be clear that we're not touting Dominate as a biopesticide or a fumigation replacement per se, because fumigation works the way it is. It's a EPA regulated pesticide. Dominate is not. It is a probiotic that we're adding back to the soil. When we say fumigant replacement, we're all thinking about it because we're replacing some of the dollars that they're spending on it, and that's really how we're talking about that. But you get that fall application in, and then we'll come back and we'll put 5 gallons or so in the planter band, and then we want to mix some in throughout the summer and kind of spoon feed that to the end of the crop, and we're just redosing, re-inoculating, and all of that kind of stuff. And Mark, I know you've done quite a few acres and do quite a few acres, have a lot of acres this year that went and Dominate. Sure. You want to talk us through what you've thought about it as you've come up? Because you kind of cut your teeth on this stuff as you came up as a rep.
Yeah, this was kind of the program when I come to work here, and I kind of walked before I ran with it, and started seeing really good things with it, and it's just really grown. You just got to put it out there and just watch it, because what you see is not always what you think you're going to see. Sometimes you see plant health benefits, or sometimes you just see different things with it. It's been really fun to watch and work with.
Very good. Barry, can you remember the first time that you really kind of went out there and went after it, and kind of where, if you're out there, you're a potato grower, where would you start with something like this?
I would say most of our farmers in our area have done, every time they've come to potatoes, they've fumigated.
Mm-hmm.
We're starting to come up on quite a few years. I mean, when you're going every 3 or 4 years of fumigant, we're not seeing the results now that we used to see back when we first started it.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, where the price of fumigant isn't going down, it's getting more and more every year. So we thought, well, I had an experience where I had a farmer that did Vapam, and that year his spuds died around the middle of August. Now, this was like 4 or 5 pivots. And it was in a salty area, down in what we call the Raft River area. And the next year we thought, man, that the fumigant did not help us there. They died way early. So with your help, we went and talked to this grower, and we decided to do the Dominate program. So we did the Dominate, and I think the Dominate program gave us more, more plant health. I mean, it helped the salts that we had in the soil that was causing us problems. I think it overcame them salt issues where the plant was able to go. And I think one of your reps used to be the field man that worked on those fields.
Yeah.
And with the results that he saw from those fields and how good those spuds turned out the very next year, I think you got him to come to work for you. If I
Yeah,
remember.
he's our sales rep up in Washington now. That was kind of an interesting thing because I think you gave him my number, and he called me up because his expectation as the field man on those fields, kind of knowing the salt problems and everything and the variety that was going in there, he's like, up the chain at that potato producer, he's like, we're going to get 300 sacks to the acre and they're going to look like marbles. So this is basically going to be crop failure.
That's what they were the
right?
first year.
Yeah. And so they were really worried about it. And so when they came out and saw what was going on in August and started doing those 10-foot digs and things, he called me after he talked to you. He's like, what's going on with these fields? Barry's like, those are my Dominate fields. Well, what's that? And then I get a phone call. Next thing I know, I'm having a meeting with him and his boss, who's the head of research and development. And we started doing trials with them. It's kind of been the holy grail. Can you raise potatoes on a commercial basis without fumigation or a reduced load of fumigation? What can we do? Because, fumigation's not helping soil health at all. It's just killing the really worst guys that are out there, but you're also killing everything else that's good. And Mother Nature is a balance, right? We're trying to get that. So long story short, he liked it enough and watched it the next year that he's now worked for us for, I think going on 5 years. One of our best reps.
That's a pretty good success story.
I would say so. Yeah, that's a good testimonial. Mark, you say you never know how it's going to work. And I think that goes to all of our products, right? And our approach versus other biological companies that are out there, we're throwing a really wide net, right? You look at our labels and we've got 15 to 20, maybe 25 different microbes that are in our mix. And the idea is that we're shooting with a shotgun instead of a rifle, because a rifle a lot harder to hit something. And every year is different. So what kinds of things do you see out there, and how do you talk to your growers about the Dominate program?
The products kind of spoke for itself, right? You got to first you got to pitch it to them.
Yeah.
And they've got to be willing to try it, right? But once they try it, they're seeing the same things we are. They're seeing healthier plants. They're seeing, similar yields to what they would get with fumigation. Yeah. Which is what they're looking for. So
yeah, we've always kind of felt like if we can get in that same area, and I think one of the things that we see also is where you're doing this on multiple rotations, we're starting to see some cumulative benefit in soil health in those soils. And so whereas we might be moving backwards a little bit just because we're affecting so much of the soil microbiome when we fumigate, maybe if we're trying to do that from the probiotic side and we're putting more good guys in there, we're really trying to build up that soil. There's obviously factors that make for better. I mean, the more organic matter that we can have in those soils, I think the better our survivability is and all of those types of things.
Well, a lot of our farmers are doing compost now.
Yes.
And this is going to help the compost break down a little quicker and bring results a little quicker than what normal compost by itself would do. So that's a benefit.
Yeah.
For sure.
No, and that's a really good place to start. On any farm grade product, I would say, and this come from farm grade in its previous iteration, we built a lot of compost. I mean, we were building 1 million tons of compost.
Well, that's
a year.
what I knew you from. I mean,
that's
farm
where
grade
we
was
got
a
going.
compost company,
right?
Yeah.
Just to touch on that a little bit, a lot of these farms we work with, they've been around for 100 years, and when you start thinking about what they're doing to the soil with fumigation and killing the soil, none of them want their soil dead, right? They're pretty proud of their soil and they want to take care of it. So if you can bring them a product like this that's going to build their soil up, they're apt to try it.
Yeah. And, again, we have to be really careful about the way that we talk about these products. This is a soil health benefit deal, but it's all the same dollars coming out of a grower's pocket. And, obviously we don't want to lose any of the tools that we have at our disposal right now. I mean, we still need fumigation. There are places where, you got nematode problems, you got to fumigate, right? You really need to get in there and take care of that. It's just another tool in our toolkit where we can go in and say, well, maybe the threshold's not high enough that I'm worried about that, but I want to build some soil here. I'm going to put down some compost. I think that, one thing that we found with the compost is when we started turning compost, to get to EPA 503 spec, it would take us about 20 turns and a lot of fuel, a lot of labor. That scarab, we were changing flails on it all the time. And it was tough to make money doing that. You had so much invested in that compost. When we started spraying the precursor to what became Valley Bios on the front end of that and let the bugs do the work, we got that down to where we only had to turn it 5 times. And so we weren't opening up that pile to where all the nitrogen was volatilizing off and you could smell the ammonia and all of that stuff. It was making better compost, but we were also able to get in there. I'm sure you guys, this is one of the toughest things for your guys that use compost is they ask you, well, can I count on that phosphate being there? Can I count on that nitrogen being there? What do you tell them?
No. I mean, it takes
eventually.
Eventually. I mean, it's a 5-year deal.
There it is.
What you put on this year, you can't expect it to have it the next year's spud crop.
Yeah. And, where you have a good biologically active soil, and that's really what is driving the availability of the nutrients is the bugs have got to go in there and crunch that away from the organic matter that it's bound to or make the transformations into a plant available form. And so these types of products really can help accelerate getting the return on investment out of that compost, maybe before it blows away, or how, whatever it looks like. I know that you guys have seen some things as well from one of the things that we deal with coming out of grain and going into potatoes is just the organic matter residue from the previous year. Have you guys noticed anything on your dominate fields with regards to that?
Well, we typically follow grain going into potatoes, but we have had some corn, which leaves a lot of stubble.
Mm-hmm.
And we've used the Dominate program mixed with some uran to help break down that carbon.
Mm-hmm.
So it's done very well.
Yeah.
It's done really good at breaking down the residue. And we do a lot of sulfuric acid on our stubble.
Yeah.
Which isn't cheap anymore.
It's really expensive.
And it's hard to deal with. I mean, we worry about our employees getting burnt and stuff. So this is a good, not only can we look to maybe take them dollars we put towards fumigation, but also sulfuric acid, and get the benefit of both with our Dominate program. And it's been working really good.
Yeah. What do your growers think about it? I mean, you guys kind of put yourselves out there. I'm sure your growers are watching that like a hawk all summer, and it's come August 8th, you're going, I hope these things stay up. I hope they stay up. I hope they stay up. Tell me some stories. What have you seen?
Like with anything, sometimes you have failures, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you can have failures with a labeled product. It's going to tell you exactly what it does, and it doesn't work. So, I mean, there's been some ups and downs because there are people looking at it expecting it not to work, right? And they see what they want.
Sure.
But we've also seen some things that were unexplainable that were phenomenal, right? That they could not ignore.
Yeah.
Yields, size, just phenomenal crops.
As you're going through a season, like what keys do you give them for like reasons to believe? As what are you watching to say, man, that field's really looking good?
Well, I remember one of the first years I tried it, we had a field right on the interstate, I-15, going into Merrick Falls from Pocatello. We had a grower that was digging, and this is one of his last fields he had, and it was getting into November. And that thing was still green as the day is long. And I thought, man, this is going to be outstanding. I mean, the yield was really good, and there was no fumigation. That's all we did was the Dominate program. But I I still remember that field staying green till November. I mean, that's just usually the frost takes it down before then, but
Sure.
it was outstanding.
Well,
And there's one thing sorry, Mark. There's one thing I would say about the Dominate program, and why I was a little reluctant to start on the biological side of things was we've had biologicals in the past,
Mm-hmm.
but everyone that I remember hearing about, other than maybe one, was you put a pint on per acre or maybe a quart, and it was high dollar. I mean,
Yeah.
they would charge a lot of money for it. So I liked your, way of coming at it with going, by the time we get through with our whole program, we've done 24 gallons. We haven't done a pint.
Right.
We've done 24 gallons. So we've really loaded up that soil with good bugs.
Yeah.
So, and it's showing the results.
And it takes a lot of bugs to change what's going on. If you think about it, just the amount of native bugs that are in a teaspoon of soil is a lot.
a lot,
right?
yeah.
And each one of those soils, depending on how it's irrigated and what the soil structure is and what the organic matter content
Absolutely.
and how many crops have you put through that thing. And, when we get outside of kind of our backyard here, you start going into, like, we did some trials this year back in Indiana with Richard Lloyd's group, where they were doing watermelons, and they usually fumigate before watermelons. And the one, I hope I tell this story the right way, but I think we split two fields, and the one side of the watermelons that did not get our product, it's not Dominate, it's Guardian out there. Dominate's a Valley label, right? We said, well, can we compare them? And they go, yeah, you can compare them, because the side that didn't have Guardian is now pumpkins. The fusarium took the whole thing. So, you get those types of results, and those open people's eyes. And you wish that there were a ton of watermelon acres. They're just not those specialty crop type acres. But it's awesome when you can help a grower get through something like that, where, you get a small grower that's got couple of circles of watermelons and something goes bad. That's his whole year.
The money invested. I know where I've done some trials is split in fields, and we knew exactly where we had fumigant
Yeah.
and where we had to Dominate. Every time I've done that trial, we've actually done better on the Dominate than we have the fumigation.
Yeah.
There's one year we got snowed out. We was doing fumigation on a grower and got snowed out, and had about a 30-acre strip right in the middle of the field that did not get done because we were a foot of snow on the ground, and we were done for the year. So we went back in that spring because they wanted to get planting, and we could put Dominate on the day before they started planting. So we went in there and we shanked in Dominate and did our Dominate program on that little 30-acre strip in the middle of that field, and you could not tell the difference between the fumigant and that the whole year long. And I didn't do any yield data on that, but I mean, that was a pretty
Passed
good
the
trial.
eye test.
Yeah.
That's cool.
The one that sticks out to me, Barry, is when we did that strip in the middle of the field, and right in the middle of the pivot. And all year, I mean, this customer is also one of our reps, and so we spend quite a bit of time with him. And all year we heard, "Oh, that fumigant's going to kill it. That fumigant's going to kill it." And all year you could not visually see a difference in the field. Like, it all looked the same. But he called us when he was digging those spuds, and he said, I could tell right when I hit the line of the Dominate, those spuds are better.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Was he mad about it? Because sometimes they seem to be mad about it. And I know who you're talking about, and I'm wondering if he was mad about it.
We'll have to ask him when he watches this video.
Yeah. Well, he knows who we're talking about. Kind of thinking through other avenues here on Dominate. You brought up something that I think bears talking a little bit about, is flexibility with Dominate, especially with times where they're at, especially for our potato growers and friends. That spend is a big spend for fumigation. You've only got the fall to do it. And in today's market, you don't even know what your contracts are going to look like. A lot of times you got flexibility problems where you're looking at it and saying, if my acres get cut back, maybe this one that I was planning on rotating into potatoes, now I'm not going to have it. or, I fumigated this and now I don't have the contract for it. I'm going to put grain in it and I got a $360 fumigation bill.
Well, another big one is being on the canal.
Yeah. Oh,
Water.
absolutely.
I'm planning on putting spuds in that field, but I'm on canal water.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't get a good winter, I'm not going to have the water to do that. So I don't want to do fumigation while we have another alternative.
Yeah.
Another tool in the toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, it's pretty much impractical to expect to be able to do any fumigation in the spring because of the 30-day plant back and things like that. So I think that, this does give us a nice tool in that kit that says, hey, if we don't know yet, let's just hold off and we can get good results with it. I'd rather have it in the fall if I could get it. But even if you take that gamble in the fall with a 12-gallon application of Dominate, you're not into it $300 an acre.
We've had good results both ways. Putting it on the fall, I agree with you.
Yeah.
It's good to help with the stubble digestion and all that and help it propagate in the soil. But if you don't, it still works pretty good putting it on the spring.
I think that stubble digestion really does help us in kind of the holistic view of things, because so many of the pathogens, that's where they winter over. They set up shop in that detritus from the year before. And so if we can help break that down, that just makes them have to suffer a nice Idaho winter without any shelter. And so the cold and the wind get them, blow them out of here.
We focus on potatoes a lot too, but we've had growers that have done that and not been able to go into spuds and planted sugar beets in the field behind Dominate and seen phenomenal things in sugar beets as well.
Yeah, and so we do have, that's been kind of an up and coming market for us with Dominate being applications on sugar beets and things like that. I know you use Dominate in some of your sugar beet operations.
Yeah, the Dominate wasn't on purpose, but the things we saw were great. The nitros has been more the focus in sugar beets.
Sure. And we've done quite a bit of work in sugar beets with BIOS. I know that you've done quite a bit there, and it's been a nice, steady, bright spot for us for a while. But and you're not actually looking at huge gallons to get there in sugar beets. I mean, I've seen phenomenal results just taking 3 gallons of your pop-up mix and replacing it with 3 gallons of BIOS, and you can see it right to the beet. Yeah. It looks great. And there's other places where, an enhanced microbiome, enhanced activity on the soil can really help us. I know that you and I have worked a few times on trying to break down residual herbicide that's
good point.
In the fields. You have anything to say about that?
Yeah, we in our area, we always have some weed escapes in our potatoes, and matrix is what we got to go in there with. And usually beets follow potatoes, and the matrix is pretty tough on the beets when they follow the potatoes. So we tried some BIOS to help hurry and break that down, and it worked. It worked good. That we didn't have the beet damage, so it works as a good chemical, get rid of that stuff.
It's just a natural cycle, right? Yeah. It's just bugs doing what they do. They chew
Speeding
on
up the cycle.
Yeah, they're chewing on the compost or the manure that's out in the field and making it into what they make it. And they do the same thing on those organic compounds. It takes them a while, I wouldn't worry about, we put in a lot of our stuff combined in with your Roundup sprays and things like that. And you never see like a breaking down the Roundup too soon to where it's not doing its job in the field.
Yeah.
But, over time, I think it really can help to cycle that. And that's a good thing for the environment. The sooner we can get that out of the system after it's done its job, the better in my perspective.
Oh, yeah.
The other good thing about it is the mixability. Like we can pretty much throw this stuff in with anything and find a ride for it onto the field. You're not paying for an extra application for just this product.
Yeah, no, I think that's been one of the things that just who we are from farm grade. I grew up on my grandpa's potato farm, in central Utah. We did Frito-Lay contracts and some In-N-Out burger contracts for the oversized stuff for their French fries. And so you learn what it's like to live in the head of a farmer when you're watching your grandpa go out to the field, and this is how things go. And so now sitting here in a products company and, we came from that background. We know how hard it is. You can't show up tomorrow and say, hey, Barry, I got this great product. All you got to do is make sure it's refrigerated until 3 days before it goes on, or 3 hours,
get it on
right?
in 24 hours.
Yeah. That's not going to work. You could have the best product in the world, and that just doesn't fit big farm logistics. And so, as we do look a lot different than our competitors. A lot of them, they're chemical companies, and they want it to look like the 2.5 gallon jugs that everything else looks like, and it needs to be treated this way and that. And I think there's some great products out there. I really do. It's just a little bit different approach than we go out, but what we've really targeted is even on your big growers that have got to do 20,000 acres of spuds in the time frame that they got to get them done. That's a lot. You got 3 weeks to get that many things planted. You cannot sit there and have to fill up or do this. So understand that the logistics are out there, and we can fit those logistics. You can mix it in with your Roundup. You can mix it in with, some of our best results are that 5 gallons in the planter band mix of Bios or Dominate. You can throw nitros in there, whatever. But whatever that is, it helps the fungicides that are in there. It helps the nutrient package that's in there. It's just a holistic approach. And I think that's where a lot of companies go wrong. Is you'll never hear me say that any of the farm grade products is a magic bullet. You'll hear me say it makes a good grower standard program look really shiny, but if you're not watering your crops, Mark, I'm not going to be able to do much for you. Right?
Bad seed.
You can't fix. You got to start with a good foundation, right?
Absolutely. And that's where you guys come in, and that's where the partnership is. And you don't ask me to write your recs for a potato program, but I can look at it and say, hey, I think that what I've seen in the past, if you add this is where I would look for avenues to where I think this is going to help. And, all we care about at the end of the day is that our growers, for every dollar that they spend on a farm grade product, they got to make money. And we prefer that money is in the first year, so that, any of the residual effects, that's gravy. That's icing on the cake. I like that. But tough in today's situation to tell somebody you need to invest in this for 5 years before you can see anything.
Yeah, that would be
we
tough.
wouldn't get very far, right? Yeah. Anything else that comes to mind about, we don't have to spend all the time. I think we've done a good job talking about Dominate, but other places, we had Gary and Kelly and McKay on this last time, talked a little bit about nitros, and I know that you guys use some nitros as well. What are you guys seeing there? How are you using it?
Well, I think you got to think of this as a whole system approach, right? You can't just put Dominate on the field and just be done. I think it works it'll work, but not to its full potential, right?
Yeah.
So you go Dominate in the fall or the spring, and then you follow it up, with maybe some Bios or Nitros in the band mix, and then throughout the season, I like to pump Nitros on in throughout the season, trickle a gallon or two in with the year-end, and just keep re-inoculating.
I think that's a solid approach. The best nitros results that we've seen is exactly how you're talking about it. You put 1 gallon in with 9 gallons of urine and just run your program the way that you would, and use that gallon that you pulled out to pay for the gallon of nitros.
Yep.
And, we have consistently over the past 3 years done third-party research where that's not just as good as, it's a little bit better. Like you get better yields. And it's just because you're
soil health.
Yeah, it's soil health.
It's not just a nitrogen, it's helping the health of the soil.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe you're seeing two things there, right? Because you're actually fixating nitrogen, so you can reduce your nitrogen inputs, which is in turn reducing your salt load in your field.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that we've really struggled with, especially on tight water years, is we're getting salt builds up in our center pivot irrigation fields. So.
Yeah. And every gallon of urine is got some salt in it.
Oh, boy.
Fertilizer is salt, everybody. I don't know if they taught you that in your agronomy soil science 101, but it's true.
Yeah.
We don't like to talk
The
about it when we're
Mark was saying there's not enough water to push them salts out of the zone.
No.
So it's right there in the zone, and when it's a dry year, you see it in the potatoes.
Yeah, I always, I think a really good place to start is like 10% of your mix, and we were talking about that last time, and Gary goes, I agree with that, except for in high salt fields. And he goes, I'd put 25% by volume on nitros, just because you're going to get the same nitrogen response, you're going to get all the plant health kick, but you also are just not putting that much more salt on the soil and causing more and more problems.
Yeah.
Where I grew up, the worst part of the salt problem was we were pumping salt water on our salty soil.
Right.
Yeah, it's bad.
Back to that, the original store I said in Raft River.
Yeah.
Same thing. I mean, you're putting salt water. I mean, this isn't very far from the Salt Lake.
Yeah.
The
Great
Salt Lake. Yeah, which is very salty.
That's what I hear.
Yeah.
Just really appreciate you guys and what we've built together over the past 10 years. I always say, it's the best part about my job is, we've been on hunts together. We've spent the hour before we sat here talking about all the hunts that we'd been on and reliving some of those things. And we've been on some adventures together. It's always great to work with guys that you choose to be friends with anyway.
Absolutely.
And, I think we've got a lot of that stuff, fun stuff for us in the future, and we'll take care of our growers, and maybe we'll bring them along with us on one of these next adventures. But sure appreciate you guys. Thanks for coming in today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah.